Springfield's Talk 1041. Hello, everyone. Good Monday morning. My name is Nick Reed. For many of you, streaming live, KSGF.com, also the KSGF app. We are on YouTube. Are you running your feed over there?
I am, yes.
Okay, well, I didn't know because. Well, I just didn't
I
know. But
ran
you
out
had,
of time,
well, hey,
okay?
no, I don't normally know what goes on with you on the feed because for people that aren't, well, in the studio or aren't familiar with the studio, she's over my back left hand shoulder. And
Yeah, I
so
get to stare at the back of your head.
yes, you could stare at the back of my head. And I don't have the video feed up in front of me. And, I'm not observing it. And I just don't know what's going on. And I look back and I saw you were just still prepping yourself this
I know,
morning.
I ran out of time. Well, if you do watch the YouTube stream, it typically looks like I'm very, very bored, but in all reality,
Yep.
I got about 18 tabs open,
Yep. Yeah.
scrolling eBay.
Shop. Yep. Shopping tabs.
Yeah,
Craigslist.
that is
Is
true.
Craigslist still even a thing?
Oh,
I don't
no.
know either.
Serial killers
I'm
over
sure.
here, so I'm good.
Over the weekend, there was the White House Correspondents Association. They had their big event, and I'm telling you, they gave each other awards for their brilliant coverage of Biden. Oh, and really exposing corruption we'll play some of this audio. One of the awards in particular, it went to a reporter from Axios, and the coverage of the cover-up of Biden's decline from the White House. It is almost a parody to listen to these people act as if everyone thought Biden was sharp as a tack. Like the things that you and I were talking about, just as regular citizens, and watching him, and we recall, Karine Jean-Pierre from the White House claiming that, oh, those are all edited videos to make it look like he was senile,
Yeah,
and
deep
oh yeah,
fakes.
deep fakes. We were hearing all about the deep fakes, and the media was, of course, promoting all of this. And to hear them tell it, and again, Kirsten Welker of NBC presented this award. The reason that we all found out that Biden wasn't actually sharp as a tack was because of this reporting from Axios in particular, leading the charge to really get to the bottom of this after that debate. Like no one knew, no one had a clue. The world of these people live in such a world of fantasy. And the fact that while you and I see what an absolute it wasn't a screw up job. It was deliberate. They deliberately lied to the American people for well over a year, and we know this because of some of their own writings. Now they're trying to make money off the fact that they covered it up by revealing, all right, here's what we really knew. Chuck Todd being one of them, and so it wasn't negligence. It was just a deliberate effort to try and alter the outcome of the election, to spread disinformation, much like North Korean or former Soviet media would do. They were part of the elite power structure, and so all of the stories would be crafted to suppress the political opposition. And then just to watch them stand up there and pat themselves on the back, giving each other awards for how tough they were on the Biden administration and how they were the ones that led the way for all of us to realize we didn't know that Joe Biden had issues until they really dug in and reported on it. It is sad, but at the same time, it is a parody. And watching it's an odd thing because as a country, there is still that life, like this blood stream that flows through us, in which so many of us do have within us the liberty, the minded ways about ourselves, and the demand for the truth and the knowing what's going on. And so but at the same time, we have a media that operates as if we live under a totalitarian regime in which nobody is allowed to ask questions. They are the mouthpiece of one of the two political parties. Their newsrooms are packed filled with openly, I mean, it's not like this is a hidden secret. This was noted during the testimony of I think it was NPR, PBS, one of the two. I think it was NPR, in which she sits up there and talks about how completely balanced they are. Even when it's noted to her in their main newsroom, there's not a single Republican. Every single person is a registered, openly admitted Democrat, with I think 3 or 4 that say that they're independent. So it's part of that power structure. Usually, when you see that, again, North Korea, China, former Soviet Union, you don't have a culture within that country of people that are still fighters for liberty, if you will, because those countries weren't born out of that. And while a lot of people in this country have become they become obedient, they become compliant, and a lot of this is training in public school system and university systems, training people how to be compliant, not to think, not to question authority. These are the experts. These are the people that you believe because they are the good ones, and anyone who says otherwise is dangerous and spreading disinformation. And the left has been successful at creating a very significant portion of our population that's compliant that way. But we still have this very stubborn segment of our population, of which many of you are part of, in which we're just not that way. We are free and independent thinkers. And it seems to me somewhat unusual to have a country with a media that behaves as a media does under a totalitarian regime, where they are just the absolute mouthpiece for that regime, while you still have a significant portion of the population that are independent thinkers. You usually don't have those two things in the same country. And it makes it so much more unique and unusual for us to observe these media people throwing themselves parties, patting themselves on the back, giving themselves awards for things that are so patently absurd and contrary to the truth, and we're able to observe it. If this is done in North Korea, then, the people, they would just applaud along and they'd say, oh, yes, this is wonderful. No one would dare call them out for it. If this were something that, Venezuela, communist China, again, former Soviet Union, everyone within the citizenry, I mean, they may quietly amongst themselves grumble about it, but there would not be the public observations of just the insanity of it. But at this particular point in time, and with social media and the people in charge of social media now not kowtowing to the censorship regime, it's a very interesting mixture of events occurring in this country. Over the weekend, a couple of you've got numerous people from the Trump administration that is trying to correct the narrative being put out by the media that Trump is deporting young children. We finally found a way for the left to be for separating families. And this is because you have some people in this country that are here illegally. And there's one case in particular in which the mother who is here illegally was being deported. And she was asked, do you want to leave your children here with family members in the U.S., or do you want to take them with you? They were born here in the U.S., so they're considered U.S. citizens. And so she was given that choice. And she said, I don't want to be separated from my kids. And so the government's like, okay, you can take your kids with you. They're U.S. citizens, so they can come back anytime they want when they get older, or if you want to bring them back with family members. Well, this, of course, is an opportunity for the media instead to claim that Trump is deporting 2-year-olds. He was supposed to separate these families, apparently. We found the key. We've known the key. How do you get Democrats to support separating 2-year-olds from their mothers? Well, you just have Trump not do that. You have Trump make sure that mothers who are in the country illegally and held accountable for it, that they get to choose whether or not their children, if the children are U.S. citizens, stay here in the U.S. or go with them. And now all of a sudden, Separating families is the virtuous thing. Marco Rubio on that, and Tom Horman as well. So we've got quite a bit today. Friday, happy hour. Retro Metro. Love for you to come join us 4 to 6. I believe Cam, when I talked with her last week, she was going to try to be there. So any of you that have signed up for The Great Escape, maybe if you just got any questions, I know it's very early because it is November, then you can, of course, come out. And it's just a really fun, great time for us all to get together anyhow. And if you haven't signed up yet, I would call the office today. Haven't gotten an update since not this past Thursday, but the prior Thursday when we were hitting 2/3 of reservations. So I'll try and reach out to her today and get the latest. But I imagine that there are some slots still available. Otherwise, in all likelihood, she would have informed me about that. KSGF.com is where you can get all of that information. You want to do some weather for us?
I would love to do some weather for you. That first alert forecast from Ozarks' first meteorologist, Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today it'll be partly sunny and breezy with a high near 83. Tonight, scattered showers and then mostly cloudy with a low around 63. For your Tuesday, we'll see a 90% chance of showers and thunderstorms with a high near 73. And looking ahead to Wednesday, showers with a high near 74.
White House Correspondents' Dinner taking place over the weekend. Did you know that the reason we learned of Biden's decline and so much more of the Biden administration's corruption was because the media was on it?
Well, yeah, because he was sharp as a tack.
Yeah. It's pretty humorous the way that some of these awards were framed and the rewrite of history, because it's clear they recognize that they have been fully exposed as being part of that elite power structure, that they have not been acting as what we traditionally think of as media, but instead a propaganda wing of the left in this country. And they recognize that, I believe, because this is why they gave themselves awards during this White House Correspondents' Dinner, as if, like, in the context of, we were really covering this administration toughly. They couldn't really give themselves awards for, covering what, it's the best way to put this. They have to look back over the election year and figure out, okay, what coverage should we highlight that is award worthy? Well, what are they going to say? Now, this, of course, is internal and patting themselves on the back, but they recognize they can't really lean heavily on their reporting about how bright and sharp Joe Biden was in the face of all these false rumors and deep fakes and so forth. They couldn't do that. And last year, the news was the election. So what are you going to do? Boy, and they're really stretching as well, because this is the problem they face. There really wasn't any coverage in which they did anything other than try and mislead the people. So they really had to figure out, okay, what can we award ourselves that shows that no, we were just as critical of Biden. One of the awards that was handed out for presidential news coverage was to the Associated Press's Amir Madhani and Zeke Miller for their coverage of the Biden White House's alteration of official White House transcripts. Now, I don't know if you remember this or not, but what you do remember is the comment of then President Joe Biden when he said that Trump supporters were garbage. And the White House and the campaign scrambled to try and claim that he wasn't calling Trump supporters garbage, but he was calling, Trump's rhetoric garbage. And the way that the White House tried to do this was by adding an apostrophe to the term supporters in the transcript. And this is the exact quote, and all of this came from this. I love the history of this because it is turning lemon into lemonades. Trump had that huge Madison Square Garden event, you may recall, and there was a comedian that was speaking well before Trump in order to warm up the crowd, and he made a joke about a floating pile of garbage out in the ocean. It's called Puerto Rico. And people who are familiar with Puerto Rico understood what that meant, because it's just tons and tons of garbage is shipped to Puerto Rico, and it is a giant landfill in many capacities. And the media tried to then use that as a way to turn minorities against Donald Trump, as the Biden campaign, or at that point the Harris campaign, was increasingly losing minority support. So they thought, oh, this is the one. We're really going to, Trump thinks that Puerto Ricans are garbage. And so Biden goes out there and says, the only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. Well, the White House in the transcript put an apostrophe before the S and then tried to claim, no, he didn't mean Trump supporters were garbage. He meant that what they were saying, that the lies that they tell are garbage. Well, the Associated Press at one point wrote a story about the fact that the White House claimed this and that the White House put this apostrophe in the transcript. And it was such an obvious thing that everyone mocked it, and everyone knew that this was just a pathetic attempt by the White House to try and clean up yet another mess that was created by Joe Biden. Well, this is what they got the award for. At the White House Correspondents' Dinner for presidential news coverage. The fact that the White House put that apostrophe in there. So they're trying to make it seem as if they really blew open a scandal. Like this was something that no one would have ever known if it weren't for the Associated Press really digging in and uncovering it, which it was just almost obligatory that they had to cover this story because it was so painfully obvious what the White House was trying to do. So, point being, the press desperately and pathetically trying to find any example that they could turn into. See, no, we were not dishonest. Look how critically we covered the Biden administration. I want to play audio of the award being given in the name of, I don't know, some Chicago journalist, Kirsten Welker of NBC News presenting it. And this one is just flat out delusional. It is all in the name of Axios is the media outlet responsible for informing the American public of Biden's decline, which apparently none of us knew until after that debate in July. I want a great homeloan.com for all of your home loan needs. Refinancing, perhaps. First time, second time, 80th time. Refinancing, is it the right time to do it? What about interest rates? You know what? Everything is customized just to you. What are your needs? What are you going to live here? Is this your forever home? How old are you? Are you going to retire soon? It isn't a one-size-fits-all. So if you just go about Googling or asking someone who's not an expert in that particular area, you're probably going to get an answer that doesn't really reflect your personal situation. And the characters in their team are so much more than just Oh, you're ready to get that home loan or that refinancing? Let's get started on it. But the lead up to it, is it the right thing for you to do? Providing you the information so you best can make that decision for yourself. Use them in that capacity. There's no cost to do that, no cost to learn, no cost for the information. They just really like what they do. And it all starts for any of those questions. And of course, once you're ready to go, iwantagreathomeloan.com, because you do. Traffic update.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Ozark's first meteorologist, Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see partly sunny skies. It'll also be a breezy one. We'll see a high near 83. Tonight, scattered showers and then mostly cloudy with a low around 63. For your Tuesday, a 90% chance of showers and thunderstorms with a high near 73. And looking ahead to Wednesday, showers with a high near 74.
What White House Correspondents Association dinner. Oh, one of the funnier things that occurred. They, I don't know why it seems like people on the left have a problem with this. Let me read to you from the Daily Caller. A camera for an internal feed at Saturday's White House Correspondents' Dinner mistakenly cut to the wrong journalist during a speech by the organization's president. Two attendees of the event, Ruthless podcast co-host Comfortably Smug and Puck News co-founder Julia Ioff, posted on X that the association had mistakenly shown NBC News White House correspondent Yamiche Alcindor instead of Black Press USA Washington Bureau Chief April Ryan on the internal feed. The White House Correspondents Association did not immediately respond to a request for a comment from the Daily Caller News Foundation about the reported mix-up. Now, why is this particularly humorous? You want to take a guess? Well, it's two black women. They like showed one claiming it was another. So it was this typical sort of, oh, you can't tell the difference. They have a habit of doing that. One of my very favorite bits of audio was, oh, I forget her name. Was it Stephanie Rule? You can just YouTube news anchor mixes up Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton. And I've played this before, where she is introducing Jesse Jackson but calls him Al Sharpton, and there's this long pause, and he's like, I'm a Jesse Jackson. and of course, she's just mortified not because she mixed them up, but there's, two at that time in particular, two of the if you were to say, okay, what are the two spokespersons for the black community, it would have been Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton, and only two of them, and she gets them mixed up.
I think it was MSNBC Contessa.
Yeah, Contessa
Brewer.
Yeah, Brewer. Because I want to say she was originally from the Milwaukee market, and then got picked up at MSNBC. And Jesse I'm a Jesse Jackson, and her stumbling around. I have that audio saved. I can look it up maybe during the break and play it, just because I find it so humorous. And he's never been a very animated person anyhow, physically speaking. He's got just a face that doesn't move much, and so his just looking into the monitor at her and her desperately trying to excuse it without making it too obvious what she's trying to, it's just brilliant. But the left has this habit of mixing up black people in particular, and that they evidently did it during the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Then you have Kirsten Welker, NBC, and here she is presenting an award. Now, she describes the award and then announces the reason for the award being presented to Axios's Alex Thompson.
The Aldo Beckman Award for Overall Excellence is named for a past president of the association, the late Chicago Tribune Washington correspondent, Aldo Beckman. The award was established in 1981 to recognize a correspondent who personifies the journalistic excellence and personal qualities of Aldo Beckman: impartiality, integrity, and a deep knowledge of the presidency. The award also includes a prize of $2,500. This year's award goes to Alex Thompson of Axios. Judges said Thompson's aggressive reporting on President Biden, especially leading up to and after the Trump-Biden debate, revealed the president's cognitive decline was impacting his ability to do his job, information the White House tried to conceal. Ladies and gentlemen, the White House Correspondents Association is pleased to give the Aldo Beckman Award to Alex Thompson.
Now, if you did not know any better, you were just some person who had been in a coma, or you did not follow presidential politics, you did not watch any of the late night talk shows, you were just clueless. You weren't even sure who president of the United States were, and you were to see these awards, you would think the way that setup occurred and the explanation for the award and the reason that she listed that the judges decided to give the award is that there was this president of the United States that everyone thought was perfectly fine. No one in the world or the American population suspected in any way, shape, or form that he had any sort of cognitive decline, but for this one reporter from Axios who, leading up to and then post-debate, of course, revealed to the world that Joe Biden wasn't fully there. That's what broke the story wide open, and if it were not for that, who knows what may have happened. If it weren't for that, you and I, we may have President Biden today, and we would all still think that guy was sharp as a tack. What an absolute joke. This is why people have absolutely no trust in the media. None. It isn't even a nuanced lie. It's just such a brazen and comical rewriting of history that they they beg us to not even take them seriously. It's as if it's some sort of Naked Gun movie that is a parody of just how incredibly embarrassingly bad that the media is, that they give themselves awards for coverage that they were part of the problem. The characterization that he exposed the White House cover-up, this was not a White House cover-up. I mean, they were part of it. This was a media cover-up. This was a Democrat Party cover-up. This was a Hollywood celebrity cover-up. This was a big-time donor cover-up. Everybody who was lobbying for or covering or putting out any sort of social media postings on behalf of the Biden reelection campaign, which ranged from Hollywood celebrities to, of course, all of these different reporters and any and every Democrat out there, they were all part of it. And I don't even know that it's fair to say it was a cover-up, because it wasn't covered up. It was denialism. To me, a cover-up is when you learn something. You're like, why didn't we know this before? Oh, my goodness. We had no idea because these people over here kept it hidden and covered up. We all knew this. It was before our very eyes. This is what is just so... You want to, like, for whatever reason, be at an event like this, and they're like, and we're going to pick one random seat and let somebody come up and just give their thoughts on all of this, and then they pick your seat, and you get to go up, and be like, do you people, what is wrong with you people? And they just fancy themselves so elite, and these are the people who are concerned about disinformation. These are the people who justify the previous administration censoring Americans, disappearing Americans off of social media, casting anyone who questioned the official story from the White House as being, puppets of Putin and responsible for spreading disinformation. I mean, the audacity of these people, it is just hilariously insane. Now, here is part of, he only spoke for a few minutes, and this is the recipient of the award from Axios. And I will say Axios, though they are left-leaning, actually does much more exploratory journalism that oftentimes is more honest than the media itself, even when it's covering Democrats. And I think that's because Axios, unlike the media, isn't so establishment as much as they are ideological. So they are all left-leaning, but they're not part of the party apparatus like so many people in the media are. So they are more likely to actually cover some of the things that the party itself probably would not want to be covered. Here he is talking a little bit about, this is part of his acceptance.
One serious note. To my bones, I believe that reporting and the White House Correspondents Association is as necessary as ever. President Biden's decline and its cover-up by the people around him is a reminder that every White House, regardless of party, is capable of deception. But being truth tellers also means telling the truth about ourselves. We, myself included, missed a lot of this story. And some people trust us less because of it. We bear some responsibility for faith in the media being at such lows. I say this because acknowledging errors builds trust, and being defensive about them further erodes it. We should have done better. I believe our mission is vital in a world where people are struggling to figure out what's true, and people with power are not telling the truth. I also believe that this association has been, is, and will continue to be critical to that mission.
Okay. Now, of course, we know that whether it's the Associated Press or the press at large, they let's put it this way. They may not have been responsible for the original lie. They made it possible to continue on through that administration. If and this is, frankly, what media is supposed to be about. They are supposed to be the ones that inform the American people, hey, here's what's really going on, so that we can respond in the way that we choose based off of our assessment of that information, so that we know what's going on. That is what they are supposed to be doing. They did the opposite. And they not only covered up the truth, or attempted to cover up the truth. Now, we do know that they, again, everyone knew who had an objective perspective that Joe Biden was losing it and that his mind was mush. I mean, that is just absolutely undeniable to any average individual that was paying attention. Now, if you watch the nightly news and got your news from people like Jimmy Kimmel or Kristen Welker or Chuck Todd, you may not have known this because they censored information. And this, of course, is the point. While the media may not have been part of the original lie, they are the reason that the liars were able to get away with it as long as they were. And that's because they joined in the lie and went a step further, trashing anyone who told the truth. They carried the messaging of disinformation. They tried to claim, oh, well, it's just age, and Donald Trump is just about the same age, so how can you have a problem with Joe Biden and be a supporter of Donald Trump? They tried to diminish it in that capacity. They tried to claim that it was a stuttering issue. They played the ageism card again, and when that didn't work, then they, like I mentioned, tried to say, well, Trump is that old. I mean, they did everything they could. And this sort of, self flogging, this we could do better. We should do better. The only reason that the media is telling itself that it's doing any sort of self-reflection, which it really isn't, is because it backfired on them. If it had not backfired on them and Joe Biden stayed in the race and somehow, let's say, Joe Biden won, or even if he didn't win, the media still would be pretending that Joe Biden was right as rain. But that, of course, debate, it backfired, this constant covering for Biden and this portrayal of him being fine. And then what, of course, occurred is they could not cover up what happened in that debate. You and I, you see, we think, how is that a surprise to anyone? We've been saying this. Many of us were talking about it during the first campaign and noting that's why they're keeping him hidden in the basement, because he has something wrong with him. So this has been going on for some time. And it may seem odd to use that debate, though it was a train wreck, to, well, he's been a train wreck all this time. But you follow this stuff.
You know what I think? The part that I find just rich about all of this, with all of them just patting themselves on the back, is so many of them are cashing in on this lie that they helped orchestrate in the first place. Alex Thompson, isn't he the same guy that's partnering up with Jake Tapper to write a book?
Yeah, what they really knew.
Yeah, so. And then on top of that, he got money for that award.
He gets $2,500.
Oh, wow.
Which
you did your job. Good job.
For an elite, it's in Washington, $2,500 isn't that much, but nonetheless, so he gets $2,500 for supposedly his stellar coverage exposing, that Biden had cognitive decline issues. And that was something that we all learned after the debate. But then out there making money off a book, actually, we knew it for a long time, and here's the inside story. These people are such dishonest scam artists. I don't think that it even crosses their mind, gee, maybe this looks a little dishonest. Maybe possibly this looks just a little bit like we are completely unethical, immoral people. When you are so far detached from morality and what is right and what is wrong, you begin to lose touch with what other people will see as right or wrong. And that's how it is you end up giving yourselves award for this sort of stuff. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Tomorrow, Pinnaker Honda grand opening. Get your first 3 months of fuel for every new vehicle free. And they're having a big open house for the big brand new showroom floor. That is 5 to 7 o'clock. So as you're headed home tomorrow night, or tomorrow afternoon rather, you could swing by at South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn, and there's going to be all sorts of food trucks, and it's complimentary. So you can come by and, and get yourself some dinner if you like from one of the area food trucks. It's a great way also to figure out, if you don't know, because food trucks that kind of sprinkle around. You got your pattern like, oh, I'm mostly on the north and the east side of Springfield, so you don't see what is necessarily going on food truck wise on the west south part of the Springfield area. And so it's a great introduction perhaps to a food truck you aren't familiar with as well. And they're going to have some other cool stuff also, including all sorts of incredible deals, 0.99% on interest rates on some of the pre-owned certified vehicles, which is an incredible interest rate for that particular situation. The grand opening tomorrow, Pinnaker Honda, 5p to 7p. And again, that's the grand opening of the new facility. They, of course, are currently open, but that's where the big grand opening is going to be there. Speaking of the media and how they just cannot help themselves, the funeral for the Pope took place. Was that Friday? Was that Saturday? Friday? Did you see the stories and the picture of everyone was told to wear a black suit, but Trump refused? Did you see this?
No.
All right. So I saw a couple of the headlines. Of course, it was shared by people who hate Donald Trump, a lot of which probably also hate Christians and Catholics, but, you know, why let those worlds collide? And the headline was something along the lines of, everyone was told to wear a black suit, but Donald Trump was the one who defied it. And now, first off, I don't know whether everyone was told that or not. This is the media's claim. So who knows? But there's a tight shot of him, and then maybe roughly 9, 10, 11 people around him. I don't know. It's a pretty tight shot, and they're wearing black. Now, what do you think happens if you pull back and you see the rest of the people? About half of them are wearing blue. I mean, it's so clearly what they did is they just kept, so you have all of these people, and there were some other colors as well, but it was clearly, you did not look at the crowd and think, oh, most people are wearing this color or that color. It's a mixture just like you would see at any particular sort of, all right, are you seeing it?
Yeah, Yahoo News has literally a black and white photo with Trump colorized. I'm not even
Have
kidding.
you seen the pullback photo, though? Yeah. And so what they did is, and they really have to, in this particular case, really drive it home, just in case you don't understand what we're trying to say here. So they moved the camera in and in and in. There was a photo, was it around election time or after the election? And it was actually, it was a centerpiece of a story. regarding Trump and I think it had to do with race, and it was a close in tight shot of just a bunch of white people. But again, if you pulled back, you saw it was a full mixture of races, and this is why they can't be they're liars. These people are liars. You cannot trust them for anything. Meanwhile, Joe Biden is doing selfies with people at the funeral. He was doing selfies.
He looked confused every time that there was, they panned over to him. He had no idea where he was.
And I mean, in fairness, not being facetious here, there's a good chance that he just didn't necessarily. He gets caught up in the moment, doesn't realize maybe selfies aren't the most appropriate thing at this time. And you didn't have to alter or like have a particular editing of a shot to see that he was doing this because, he was just doing it. But I kid you not, I swear, Obama did the same thing when the previous pope died. I swear to you, it wasn't the previous pope's funeral. It was in some huge arena or something. And I swear Obama was doing selfies at that particular funeral as well. Of course, it'll be difficult to find. We'll get a traffic update. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. The Obama selfie event was Nelson Mandela. Out of your question, was Zelensky wearing a suit? He was not. I found a picture of him. He is wearing black. It's a button-up shirt. Okay. Well, sure, of course, because he's the pinnacle of democracy. He is all things good. So he could wear a black tank top, and it would be considered perfectly normal. Because, listen, if you can be praised as a defender of democracy while at the same time canceling elections, imprisoning journalists, and shutting down media outlets and banning political parties that are your opposition, then you can wear whatever you want to the Pope's funeral and still be okay with the left. We've got news coming up in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 1041. I am Nick Reed. Welcome to the show. Talking about the media's inability to, even choosing to cover certain things about Trump, in which the point is clearly to try and make him look bad. An example that always comes to mind, I remember when we were on one of our great escapes, and there was a story about how Donald Trump embarrassed the country because he was in Japan and he threw a handful of fish food in the koi pond. Remember that one? And of course, it turned out it was edited video, and whatever it was he was doing, it was perfectly normal. They're incapable of they just can't help themselves. Even if you don't believe their bias, their judgment. Anyone who really wants to know the truth about what's going on will not listen to these people. Just won't. And in the previous hour, we talked about how they claim, I don't know whether this is true or not, that people who went to the Pope's funeral were told to wear a black suit. And of course, Trump is the one who didn't. And there were pictures of him sitting there it's a tight shot. And so you see a handful of other people around him all wearing black. Well, when you pan back, you see that half or most of people aren't wearing black, but they do a tight shot in order to make it look like he was the only one that did not do it. And of course, why would you even think to write a story about that anyway? I could understand if everyone were wearing black suits and Trump weren't, and people are like, Trump really stands out. And you're like, well, here's why. But that isn't what was going on. This was a made-up story. And meanwhile, Joe Biden is running around taking selfies with people at the funeral. And I had recalled that Obama had done the same thing. I was thinking at first it was a Pope's funeral, but it was a Nelson Mandela event. And a number of you, because you're sharp, you send in articles about it at the time. And it's just amazing. Most of those articles that were written, they were written in response to people noticing it on social media. And it was all in defense of him. Well, here's the story behind it. It's like those stories are in response to people that are on social media, and they feel like, we've got to swoop in here and make sure everyone understands why it is that Obama actually did this. And we were talking about how Zelensky didn't wear a suit either. Now, he wore black, but he flat out didn't wear a suit. And so I found this headline from the Express: the real reason why Vladimir Zelensky didn't wear a suit to Pope Francis' funeral. And it's because it's all about how he's demonstrating and letting the world remember that he's fighting for democracy. And that's, I know, it's just so
Don't you get so sick of that?
It's so embarrassing and obvious. It's almost as if AI has been programmed there's a listing of people, and anytime anyone is critical of any of these people, AI is programmed as a way to try and redeem that person, or tell you why you're wrong in your interpretation as to what's going on, or why it is that it's okay for that person to do X, Y, and Z, while it's horrible for that person, well, Donald Trump, of course, to do X, Y, and Z. We've got, happy hour coming up on Friday. If you've not been to one of our happy hours, love for you to join us. That is going to be 4 to 6 at Retro Metro. You can also sign up for our lunch bunch at Retro Metro. We do that every Wednesday. And when you go to KSGF.com, you get signed up for that. If your name gets drawn, then you and up to 5 people of your choosing will join us for lunch. We'll contact you and arrange. It'll be on a Wednesday. That's the day that we do the lunch bunch. And then we'll just set up the time. We meet there and we have lunch. You don't have to have all 5 people. Maybe it's just you. Maybe it's 3 people. Now, our happy hour that's coming up, that's not a sign-up thing. That's just anybody come by, have a good time with us. I would love for the people sign up for the Great Escape to come out. I think Cam, I know she put it on her calendar, so she has planned to be there. And it'd be a great time if you just want to learn more about the resort or the upcoming Great Escape in November. It'll be a great time to visit with her on that. And even if you've been on many of it, it's a good time. And, of course, Cam's lots of fun. We'll have to see if she can bring Mark along with her.
Yeah.
We'll have to insist on that. All right. Weather in a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
And the First Alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today, we'll see partly sunny skies with a high near 83. Tonight, scattered showers and then mostly cloudy with a low around 63. For your Tuesday, we'll see a 90% chance of showers and thunderstorms with a high near 73. And looking ahead to Wednesday, showers with a high near 74.
We are going to chat with Congressman Burleson coming up here in a couple of moments. I did find that audio, though. I was referencing that over the weekend, the White House Correspondents' Dinner accidentally mixed up the names of two black female reporters, and how they'll have, especially in the media, they tend to do that. And one of my favorite bits, well, it's audio from video, and this is at MSNBC, Contessa Brewer, right? Isn't that?
I believe so.
Yeah, Brewer. And she is leading into introducing what is Jesse Jackson.
He says in return for those big salaries and bonuses, well, bankers just should turn around and give more money to charity. He made that statement in London yesterday during a discussion of morality in the marketplace. Well, tell that to the guys making $10 an hour. Joining me now to talk about this and the nation's real problem of joblessness, the Reverend Al Sharpton. What's your reaction to hearing someone say, when it comes to income inequality, all's well. The rising tide floats all boats.
I'm Reverend Jesse Jackson.
Right. I'm so sorry. The script in front of me said Reverend Al Sharpton. I'm looking at your face. I know who you are, Reverend Jackson. We all do. I'm sorry.
I'm a Jesse Jackson. Jesse Jackson. Traffic update. I'm Nick Reed. Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. The website is hunterhardscapes.com. One of the cultural shifts, I suppose, that took place during COVID with people falsely being told that they had to stay home in order to be safe. A lot of people did do that, and what otherwise would have been dollars maybe spent on going away, on vacation, were instead invested back into one's home, and oftentimes that was creating spaces at home for entertainment, whether it's your own entertainment or it is for the entertainment of others, so that we could secretly gather. And taking some of the outdoor living space that you pay for, that's an expensive part of your property, is the actual land, but oftentimes we leave it to absolutely nothing. Well, with Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor, you can turn it into an outdoor oasis for entertaining for yourself. Sit out there, have yourself a nice cigar, maybe some whiskey along with it, or get out the Traeger or the Blackstone and fix dinner outside or breakfast maybe, and just spend a little bit of that time outside. This is the perfect time of the year to do it. But having an outdoor space that is so accommodating for it and premier is what makes all the difference in the world. And you can have that done with Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. Their website, again, hunterhardscapes.com. And you can also find them at ksgf.com under Nick's endorsements. Okay, we're trying to get connected up with Congressman Burleson. It's going straight to voicemail, so we'll we'll catch him hopefully sometime during the hour and get the latest from him. One of the things in particular I do want to talk with him about is this story in Just the News where House Republican leaders are considering making some of the key tax benefits that Trump promised on the 2024 campaign only temporary policies. In the reconciliation bill that's currently being crafted, a sunset period of 4 years is under consideration for policies such as eliminating taxes on tips, Social Security benefits, and overtime pay, according to Just the News. And I'd like to, get some information on that from him and see whether or not this is part of the potential negotiation for bringing down the deficit at the same time. Whatever the reason behind it is, this again is where oftentimes Republicans depart from the Democrat approach. And when Democrats expand government or raise taxes, they never have sunsets to that stuff. They're never like, okay, well, we're going to raise taxes, but we'll only do it for 4 years. It seems as if only Republicans, it's like, well, we really believe in these principles, but for 4 years, and then we'll revisit whether or not we think that principled position is still at play. And like I said, there could be reasons that do make sense strategically to do that, but that's what we'll try and learn from Congressman Burleson when we talk with him next, hopefully sometime this morning. Sarah handed me the story. The White House lawn lined with posters of 100 of the worst illegal immigrant criminals arrested in the first 100 days of Trump's second term. A posting on X from White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt noting that good morning from the White House, sharing video of the posters, which say arrested at the top and appear to have a mugshot or other photo of the person followed by label illegal alien. The bottom of the poster lists a crime the person is accused of committing, including rape, murder, sexual assault of a child, lewd acts in front of a child, and distribution of fentanyl and illegal guns. She notes, or in the posting it says, "We will hunt you down. You will face justice. You will be deported, and you will never set foot on American soil again. Oh, and your mugshot may just end up on a yard sign at the White House." I think that it would also be appropriate to note you will also have members of the Democrat Party do everything they can to portray you as a citizen falsely and to make it seem as if you are just this loving father who's a man from Maryland or whatever other state. One of the things that we are going to talk about in the show, and if you miss it in real time, we'll have it up, podcast form, Spotify, iTunes, KSGF.com. This outrage over a judge conspiring with an illegal immigrant to evade capture and detainment by ICE. All of a sudden, apparently, some people, according to Democrats, are above the law, and judges are one of those, and they are acting as if it is somehow outside the scope of the law to say judges are not allowed to obstruct justice. I'm going to take just 2 minutes, and then do we have Congressman Burleson? Is that who we have? Yes. Okay, yeah, 2 minutes, and then we'll get with Congressman Burleson here just after that. I'm Nick Reed. Congressman Burleson joins us this morning. How do you do, sir?
Doing great. Well, other than that, TSA had to look in my bag a little bit longer than normal, but other than that, I'm doing great.
Hey, I wanted to ask you, and I don't know, this is something that I caught on Just the News regarding reconciliation, and the story by Nicholas Balaji says that House Republican leaders are considering making some of the key tax benefits that Trump promised on the campaign trail only temporary policies in the reconciliation bill that's being crafted. A sunset period of 4 years is under consideration for policies such as eliminating taxes on tips, Social Security benefits, and overtime pay. So I thought, if there even is at this point any sort of background on this, what that might be.
Yeah, I think that at the end of the day, this, just so everyone knows, this struggle is going to be a struggle in how much savings and spending cuts that we can identify and actually have the political courage to do, because we could unlock, if we could find enough savings, we could unlock permanent tax cuts. We could make the Trump tax cuts permanent, and then we could make all of these other, add on as many of these additional tax cuts as possible. But the fact that we're dealing with imperfect people, and Congress is probably the best example of imperfection, then that's what we're dealing with.
So what's the struggle now? I think increasingly Americans are not paying attention to this. It feels, and this may be, it's just natural as time goes on, and maybe even unfair, but there's just this feeling a lot of Americans have that the momentum has come to a near halt, that all of this movement forward in terms of getting meaningful things done, it's starting to get bogged down. And what I fear is that some of the more establishment Republicans that may have felt pressure to do something meaningful because of the election and because of the excitement around Trump, as they see, as happens, poll numbers start to wane a little bit, and then they go back to their old ways of being more like Democrats. What's the landscape right now? What are we looking at, and up to and including the Senate's play in this, and where the real problems are?
Yeah, there's a reason why Congress has delayed this. It's designed. I mean, this is what leadership does. It's like their classic ploy. They wait until the very last possible moment, and then they jam everybody with what the solution that they had in mind all along. And they will try to wine and dine you and romanticize you the whole way through, and convince you that no, this package is going to be fantastic. And then they get to the end, and then they say, well, we tried, and this is the best we can do. Just pass it. Because if you don't, then there won't be Christmas. Trump won't get his wins. And so that's why we have been fighting tooth and nail leading up to this point, because we're Freedom Caucus, other conservatives, trying to put ourselves in the best position possible to have verbal and written commitments of at least a certain level of spending cuts. And so that's where we're at. At least we have that on paper. We have those publicly made. And I think that at least gives us some leverage going into this debate.
We're talking about Congressman Burleson. In terms of the calendar, is there a point or points on the calendar that people should be looking at and say, okay, if something doesn't happen at this point, we may be in trouble? I hear a lot of talk about, around the 4th of July, that if it's not done by then, we've got serious trouble. What should people be watching for?
Yeah, it really has to do with the debt ceiling. When we actually hit the limit of the debt ceiling, something has to be done. And the worst possible scenario is that they're not able to put it into reconciliation, because then you're going to end up if it's not reconciliation, you got to get Chuck Schumer and at least 7 votes out of the Senate to accept it. And that means that if you're going to get 7 Democrats, it's going to be pretty awful. So they're going to demand, for example, to undo all the DOGE cuts and to undo all. So we have to, if we're going to be successful, we've got to do it before the debt ceiling increase.
And when is that?
I think that it all depends on when they actually basically run out of money. And I think it's expected to be by the end of July.
Are there concerns that there may be some of the big government establishment Republicans that will deliberately drag this out and use that to their advantage to not have to do these things that the Trump administration and the more conservative members are wanting?
Yeah, and what the big government, the biggest, like the moderates, what they want to do is they want to find a way to have their cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
They want all the tax cuts and no spending cuts. And they actually want to grow spending. In this budget that's recommended, they're growing the military budget, which is what Republicans like. Our big boondoggle is the military-industrial complex. They love spending money on that, and as you know, there's a lot of waste in that program. Yeah. There's a lot of waste. There's a lot of $1,000 hammers that are being purchased, and it's something we ought to take a look at, and we ought to start, making them have to adhere to the same standards that people do in the private sector, but sadly that's not the case. So they're plussing up the military, they're plussing up the border, and to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars. If you're going to pay for that, if you're going to grow those programs and continue to have at least the level of deficits that we have today, you're going to have to find that money somewhere else. And so they want to have their cake and eat it too. And the American people are the ones that are going to get screwed in the end, because inflation is the way in which you're paying for these taxes, at either inflation or high interest rates. And so the American people, I know your listeners see right through it.
Yeah.
There is no free lunch. Eventually, all the money that's being spent will have to be paid for.
Well, and then one last question with Congressman Burleson. Congressional and whomever controls Congress can, you look at polling, and there's not necessarily a direct connection there because, for example, you may have a lot of conservative Republicans, Trump supporters in 7th Congressional District that feel as Congress as a whole is very disappointing, but you have great support there. So, it doesn't impact or affect you. And I know that there are some Republicans that may be in more blue areas, and so that's what they're concerning themselves with. But overall, it just amazes me, and I just want to get your thoughts on this, that you have some of these Republicans that worry about not doing well, and Trump's poll numbers are coming down a bit. Well, look at why Trump got elected, and look at when Trump's poll ratings are higher. It's when he's doing meaningful things, and of course,
that's right.
And so to me, and there's also this. With the voters, a Trump voter is not necessarily a Republican voter. We have seen that. And Republicans benefit when Trump is on the ballot. But if he's not on the ballot, even if he is still at play, that doesn't necessarily translate. And so to me, the answer is obvious. If you want to ride the coattails of Trump when the coattails aren't on the ballot, you have to act like Trump. And there seems to be this adverse reaction instead of a lot of Republicans to want to do what it is that often causes people like me to go, what's the point? That's just another moderate Republican.
Yeah, you're right. I think that politics has shifted, and a lot of people don't recognize how it's shifted. That's the traditional mindset, is that you have to water down your views if you're in a more purple district, and you've got, you can't really accomplish anything of substance. Trump has totally shattered that paradigm, and a lot of Republicans haven't accepted that kind of new way of thinking. But the truth, like Scott Perry out of Pennsylvania is in a very purple district, but he is about as bold as it gets. And I think the reason is that, to your point, people are sick and tired of somebody that just wants the job.
Yeah.
That will change their values and their views just to hold on to this stupid job that we're playing.
Yeah.
And the American people see right through that. But when somebody steps forward with courage, even if they don't agree with them, at least they have some level of respect. And that's the way I've always tried to conduct myself. And sadly, I would wish everybody did.
Congressman Burleson, it's always a pleasure. Appreciate it. I know it's hectic and difficult sometimes from an airport, particularly after you're going through TSA, to get on the line with us. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a good week.
Yes, safe travels. Have a good week. Congressman Burleson, everyone on Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Ozark's first meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today it'll be partly sunny and breezy with a high near 83. Tonight, scattered showers and then mostly cloudy with a low around 63. For your Tuesday, we'll see a 90% chance of showers and thunderstorms with a high near 73. And looking ahead to Wednesday, showers with a high near 74. And Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air, spring allergies, they can be pretty brutal. If you are an individual that suffers from allergies, I do want to recommend an indoor air quality check from Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. With an indoor air quality check, they can find ways to help reduce those allergens, the mold, the dust, and they can just get you breathing a little easier this spring. And not only can they do this for your home, but they can also do this for your business as well. So if you do need to breathe a little easier, schedule that indoor air quality check with Russell and his crew today. And also, while they're out there, have them do an AC tune-up so you're just ready for that warmer weather that's about to hit. All of that contact information for Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air can be found under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Frank Luntz, who's left-wing and does focus groups and polling, did a recent focus group of Trump supporters, about 15 of them, a video conference deal, and among other things, ask about tariffs and the impact of tariffs. And it's just so interesting that, and I'm going to play the audio of it, what you get are Trump supporters that the relationship seems to be upside down. Frank Luntz is supposed to be the analytical guy who understands the nuances of these things and is trying to get a sense of how people who may not be as involved in following this stuff, to get a sense of what they, just given their understanding of the surface of things, how they are responding to it. But when you listen to the conversation, it's the other way around. Like, you have Frank Luntz asking these very basic questions, and you have a number of different people that are random, other than they are Trump supporters, that are explaining the nuances of why it is that they aren't panicked about what it is that the media is setting up as this narrative when it comes to tariffs in the country. And, you know, you're always going to have people that when they vote for someone, they vote and then they just turn off the information because they like that person and they don't worry about it, and they pay attention come election next time around. They're like, nope, this is the person I'm voting for. I trust him. That's all that matters. And frankly, there's some people that aren't even that involved. They are people who don't follow what goes on, but I was raised to this my entire life, and so I'm just going to vote for that. I don't even know these names of these people, but I believe that they're the political party that's going to take us in the best direction. So I don't really need to pay attention to what's going on. Just vote for them and then worry about it next time around. And what you find with a lot of these Trump supporters, and by the way, I fall into this category. I don't trust Trump for the sake of it. I don't trust him like, well, I just trust him, so no matter what he says, it's going to work out. And whatever the outcome is, I'm going to be happy with. I believe, based off of his track record, Trump knows what he is doing to a degree that his results are going to be successful results at a higher degree than most other people. Now, that doesn't mean that Trump is infallible. This is part of the problem a lot of times people, and I'll say I think that it happens on the left. That's how you end up with Democrat voters claiming that Joe Biden is perfectly fine and has no cognitive issues, is that they believe if I support this person, they are right 100% of the time, and they never make a call in which the outcome is undesirable. They are just absolutely perfect. I recognize that no matter, you could take the most successful person ever in the history of mankind, and find instances in which they were wrong about something. Find instances in which they made a decision that they thought would result in something over here, but instead it resulted in something over there. Now, what successful people do is learn from those mistakes. They pivot when necessary. Sometimes they have to pivot in the middle of something because they go, oh, wait a minute, I thought we were going to, things were going to start playing out this way, but they're playing out this way instead, and so I need to pivot in order to have a greater chance of getting to the outcome I want. And that's what I believe Trump has earned. He has earned that perspective from somebody like me because of, again, his results. I know that so much of what happens when it comes to making decisions that involve lots of people, a business, a government, whatever it may be, that there is no perfect answer most of the time. That there is no completely right way to do it and wrong way to do it that is going to guarantee. It's not a secret. There's not a secret formula. There's not a secret puzzle. Now, obviously, there are certain approaches that have demonstrated themselves to be more likely to have a positive outcome. Lower taxes, better for the economy. Tough on crime, you have less crime. When it comes to education, really focusing on the basics, you have better outcomes. So we know that there are certain approaches that on the whole lead towards, a more desirable outcome consistently. But that doesn't mean that every decision within those confines turns out to be a decision that is perfect and wonderful. But when it comes to Donald Trump and when it comes to all this tariff stuff, and I watch so many of these people panic, and oftentimes even some, not all, but Trump supporters that are, like, well, boy, just this and that and so forth. And I understand that it is uncomfortable and it is worrisome. But it's like when you hire somebody to do a massive renovation to your kitchen, and that's not something you know anything. You don't know how to do it. That's why you hire someone. And you walk in one day, and all of a sudden, there are people with these sledgehammers tearing everything down, and you're like panicking, right? You're like, oh my gosh, what's happening here? Well, what most people know, though, is they're like, oh, okay, this is part of the process. I don't know what comes next. But that's because I'm not an expert. I see what these guys are doing over here. I don't understand what they're doing, but I know they know what they're doing. And so I know in the end, these are people that I hired to do this job, and in all likelihood, it's going to be the outcome I want. Now, of course, there are instances in which sometimes you pick the bad people to do it and dishonest people to do it, and so it doesn't turn out that way. But you cannot expect for every single day to be a day in which everything lays itself out in a way that you and I understand, like, oh, well, I get this. This makes absolute sense. Because frankly, oftentimes Donald Trump himself wakes up, looks at the landscape, like, oh, okay, he doesn't know necessarily what's going to happen, but that's part of what makes him successful is his ability to recognize that. And then when the outcome does occur, all right, do I continue on this path or do I pivot? It's like a coach in a game. Now, I believe that what also occurs is that intelligent and observant people recognizing that, hey, I don't know how to do this stuff. This guy's an expert. I'm hiring him. At some point, it is reasonable for a person to go, hey, at what point is this supposed to start paying off? Now, the media's presentation of it's been 2 weeks or it's been a month. I think most reasonable people recognize that this is something that has been problematic and built upon for decade after decade after decade. And when you have a problem that is that big, we're talking about, let's say the economy and our trade relations, and spending and, just the layer upon layer upon layer of bad decisions for short-term solutions, that it is going to take massive reconstruction and massive demolition. And that's what we're at right now. Now, if after the end of the term, things are worse than they were, we can look at it and go, okay, that didn't work. Why did it not work? Was it the wrong decision, or was it because of, Republican establishment members that thought, well, Trump's going to be gone in a few years, and so we still want to be here, and so we don't really care what his agenda is. Of course, if that were the case, could he have done something different in order to deal with those people? There is hindsight. I have everyone's going to approach it differently, and it isn't because, well, I'm a blind loyalist, but I also know that just expecting today to look like what the eventual outcome is going to look like is the same as hiring somebody to completely renovate the bathroom in your home and on day one being upset because it doesn't look like the finished product. Because it's like, now there's a lot of dust around here. I don't know how I feel about this. It's part of the process. And while that doesn't automatically mean you're going to end up with the best new bathroom ever created, it certainly doesn't mean that you're headed down the wrong road. Now, Frank Luntz, I thought, we're going to get a traffic update and play this exchange he has with these Trump supporters. And it's so clear that people on the left, Frank Luntz being one of them, they just don't get that. And it is incomprehensible to them that after, 2 or 3 weeks of this tariff stuff, while they, in their minds, they have this imagery that the world is on fire, they can't comprehend that Trump supporters aren't just abandoning him in droves and realizing what a mistake that they've made. Traffic First, I'm Nick Reed. And here's an exchange. Frank Luntz, he's doing a focus group, and it's with Trump supporters. He's asking about tariffs. And if this is just how I interpret these things. Number one, it demonstrates these focus groups aren't done so much by people like Frank Luntz in order to actually learn anything, but more to either make a point or to try and teach the focus group why they're wrong. And here's Frank Luntz. And now this is a group, it's a video call, and the visuals of it, you got like a giant Brady Bunch screen. There's, I think, 16 different squares. Frank Luntz is one of them. And then it is, other than being Trump supporters, these are totally random people that have no connection to one another.
I need to ask you an issue that no one's brought up and that has crashed your 401ks, most of you. It's your tariffs. Stock market is way down.
It needed a correction.
Oh, so you support it?
Yes. You bet.
Yep.
How many?
And I have to tell you,
how many?
my 401k wasn't impacted at all.
How many? First off, how many of you did not lose any money over the crash of the stock market? One individual, two people. So, Serena
The
and
Biden
Joe.
administration, I lost more money than the Trump administration by far.
2020,
Like
2022, they crashed
40% or more.
5%. Yeah. For the whole year.
No one's upset over this?
No.
No.
Nobody.
There's not
a game here, though.
Now, I want to pause here before we move too much further. It's as if Frank Luntz didn't hear a single word any of those people said. He starts off with this premise telling them all of your 401ks have completely crashed. That this has been an absolute disaster for you. And their response is mine hasn't crashed. Mine hasn't gone down at all. In fact, I look at the Dow futures this morning. It's up over 40,000. I mean, it's around where it was whenever we were all told that this was going to completely tank the market. I mean, largely things have stayed on an even keel here. But it's almost as it's again this delusional world that these people on the left have created versus what the average person is actually feeling right now, anyhow. And this should come as no surprise, it's a reversal of what we dealt with during the Biden years, in which people were genuinely feeling the hurt of inflation, but people like Frank Luntz were out there on the left saying, oh, no, the numbers are fine. Oh, the numbers are perfect. We're being told by the experts this is great. Now here you have Frank Luntz out there, and in his mind, everyone is feeling the impact of this. Everyone feels that their 401k has completely tanked out and that everything has gone straight to hell. And the fact of the matter is, while people have been worried, and, in that first week in particular, there was that drop, but then it went back up. And so what people have, for the most part done is recognize, okay, this is not abnormal. We've gone through this sort of thing before, and long-term it comes out. And so there's not that same feeling. And Frank Luntz, though, he believes or is telling them you should be feeling this. Now, what you also hear is the reality that one of these people piped in and said, I lost more during the Biden years than I've come close to losing in my 401k this time around. But Frank Luntz, he's again, the idea is supposed to be he's doing a focus group to find out what these people are thinking, and he doesn't hear a single word of it. You have 3 or 4 different people explaining, hey, my 401k is just fine. It didn't tank out. Hey, mine did worse under Biden. And these people giving the reality of what they're going through. And Frank Luntz is like, so you're telling me you don't have a problem with this? What about what they just said did you not hear? They continue on.
Year period in the history of the stock market where the stock market hasn't appreciated at an average rate of about 7%. There's ups and downs and corrections, and sometimes people are foolish and they jump out, buy high, sell low. But if people just get in and stay the course, they'll be just fine.
Yeah, and I was about to say, I'm not a day trader. I try not to look at it very often, which is, I think, a good thing. But I also trust that Trump and all of his advisors that are involved with the tariff issue know what they're doing. So I'm just going to hang on. I know it'll correct at some point. I'm not really worried about it.
I think how much more are you willing to pay for products and services that come out of China? How much do prices have to go up before you say, this is not that great?
I'd rather not buy from China. I'd rather pay more money and buy American.
Same.
And prices only go up if demand is inelastic and if there's no alternative supplies. And they're doing a brilliant job. They're surrounding China with countries that want to manufacture stuff as well. And we do need to bring the stuff back, the strategic stuff for sure. But but China is going to be in the soup if they don't knock it off.
All right, now the conversation goes on, but what I find fascinating about this, if you, again, don't really understand the relationship here between what Frank Luntz is supposed to be doing versus these random Trump supporters, again, they're not random other than, I mean, they are all Trump supporters, but other than that, they're random. Who sounds like the people who actually know what's going on? I mean, you have Frank Luntz, and it's like, well, what about this? And what about that? And they're giving these intellectual explanations as to why things are. It's showing that they actually are following what's going on and they understand it. And meanwhile, Frank Luntz, who's the expert, he just seems flummoxed by all of this. I don't. But what? Well, how much do prices have to go up? I mean, do we even? Here's the other thing that doesn't get talked about. Do we? We talk the price. China. What items are going to go up? You know, we don't even, now, I'm not saying there are certain industries that obviously understand they're going to be impacted, but I'm talking about people at large. When the media keeps trying to scare people into thinking all of these prices are going to be going up, prices of what? See, it varies. This isn't like inflation where everything across the board is because the value of the dollar is declining, and so the purchasing power gets less, which means you have to use more of it to purchase things. We're talking about completely different scenarios in different countries. And by the way, a lot of these products aren't products that people actually need. You know, we may be talking about things that get impacted, like Temu products and clothing and things that the average person could honestly give or take and move on in life without it, so it doesn't really impact them in a meaningful way. And so I think because of that unknown at the same time, people don't even know necessarily how this is going to impact them yet in real terms, if they do at all. That's yet to be seen. We've got to get a traffic update. I'm Nick Reed. Great Escape, filling her up. Cannot stress enough what a great time I think you will have if you join us. I would love for you to do so. Details at ksgf.com. Springfield's Talk 1041. I am Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. Contrast the Trump supporter talking about price inelasticity to the leftist being asked what they believe, and they have to read a sheet of paper that an organizer gave them. $10, says Frank Luntz, had no clue what he was being told. This is in reference to the previous segment, and Frank Luntz doing a focus group. Frank Luntz, he really rose to fame. I want to say maybe it was even he was working or was a guest on Fox News at the time, but he didn't just do polling, he did analysis of polling, and he seemed for a period of time to be objective. Well, then Trump came along, and he, like a lot of individuals that had managed to discipline themselves, regardless of their political ideology, just lost all control of it, and he's become very clearly on the left, and he demonstrates that oftentimes. He did a focus group with Trump supporters, and he's like, let's talk about tariffs. Nobody wants to talk about tariffs. And you all have had your 401ks completely obliterated. They're in the tank, and you know, how do you feel now? And they give these very informed answers to his question that are attacking, if you will, different areas of the, I shouldn't use attacking, but addressing different areas of the tariff discussion. A couple of them noting, my 401k isn't tanked. I mean, it may be down from where it was at the first of the year, but it's not down from where it was when the tariff stuff started, and it's not down in any real significant way. One pointed out that his 401k has much more damaged under the Biden administration than the Trump administration. Now, Frank Luntz didn't have any interest in really hearing that. To the point of the person texting in that here you had Trump supporters that are supposed to be these brainless idiots that simply follow Trump, that are giving very detailed explanations about why it is that they feel the way they do when it comes to the tariff situation, and that they aren't at this point panicked. They're not worried at this point, because they understand that much of this is necessary to get to a fix. Juxtapose that to Democrats being asked questions. And I know many of you have seen these before, but I saw one again. It popped up on a reel, and it was retirement age people, a man and it was a couple. I presume they were married, though I suppose I shouldn't. And they were out there all the horrible things. Everything's just gone straight to hell under Trump. And what's fascinating is when you just ask them for one example. Well, there's just too many to name. Well, what's one? Well, I'll let you take it, she says. I'll let you answer this question. Well, just, the overall tone. Most of the time, they can't even give a reason. Or they'll say something that isn't true because they don't know any better. Like, well, he's deporting citizens, which, of course, isn't true. It is, and that's not to say everyone who is a Trump supporter is educated completely on the issues, while everyone who is an anti-Trump person is completely and totally ignorant. But it is remarkable, just on the whole, if you talk with Trump supporters versus people who are on the left that like to just stand out. We see it here in Springfield, stand out in front of Steak and Shake on South Campbell and with, poorly made signs and just yell at traffic, versus Trump supporters that get up and they go to work and they do things productively and can explain why they feel certain ways about certain things. And they may be wrong in their assessment, but they at least know what it is, literally, that they are talking about. Trump has announced that he's bringing Columbus Day back. So we can... I love this. I love the subject of Columbus Day for a number of different reasons. So we've got that coming up. Also, I want to play this hour Marco Rubio, among others, correcting the disinformation from the media that Donald Trump is deporting children who are legal citizens of the United States of America. This is a newsflash. That's not what's going on. Also, well, we'll wait and see as it unfolds as the hour. If you miss any of the first couple of hours, of course, Spotify, iTunes, KSGF.com. Right now, the latest news update.
In the First Alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see partly sunny skies with a high near 83. Tonight, scattered showers and then mostly cloudy with a low around 63. For your Tuesday, we'll see a 90% chance of showers and thunderstorms with a high near 73. And looking ahead to Wednesday, we'll see showers with a high near 74.
All right, why is Ozarks elder law so important? I mean, you think, well, I got a will, or I supposed to get a will, and but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to gift all my things to my kids. That way they aren't going to have to pay any taxes. They aren't going to have to worry about any issues or problems. I'm just going to gift it to them. And that's just, that can get you in a whole world of hurt. That is not the way potentially to go, just giving your stuff to your kids, because the government, they will make them pay. You know how the government is. So what is it that you do? You hear about trust, you hear about this, you hear about, well, should I do a transfer, should I this, that? This is where they come in, not only in terms of letting you know what you need to do, but making sure that it's done properly. And the consultation, you think, oh, well, I got to go in. It's going to cost me $800 to learn this stuff. The consultation, there's no cost to it. And then once it is that you get a sense of what it is that you need done, the pricing is up front. It's not hourly. You're not on a clock. There is a price that you know ahead of time, and then, you know, that's what it is. So I understand the fear oftentimes when it comes to anything that has to do with attorneys, and you think, well, they're going to be running up the clock, and then I call and I ask a question, and I'm on the phone for 5 minutes, so they charge me for a quarter hour. That's not how they work. That's not Lori Rook, that's not her people, and that's not Ozarks Elder Law. You can get all the information, including setting up that first consultation, ozarkselderlaw.com. If you forget it, don't worry. You could Google it or go to ksgf.com under Nick's endorsements. Find it there. Donald Trump announced yesterday that he is bringing Columbus Day back from the ashes, noting that the Democrats did everything possible to destroy Christopher Columbus's reputation and all of the Italians that love him so much. The president continued by reminding everyone about the left's rampage in an effort to erase the explorer's monuments across the U.S. and replace his namesake holiday with Indigenous People Day, noting that they tore down his statues and put up nothing but woke, or even worse, nothing at all. Now, in his statement, he said, "I am hereby reinstating Columbus Day under the same rules, dates, and locations as it has had for all of the many decades before." I don't know exactly what that means. I'm not sure. It is safe to assume that perhaps under the Biden and or Obama administration, in terms of federal recognitions, there were rollbacks for political correctness, woke purposes, and that is what he is talking about. I don't know. This, however, is a battle that the left loves to fight that always cracks me up, because they fight it in a way that demonstrates their complete lack of understanding of history, their complete lack of understanding of Native Americanism, and their hypocrisy at the same time. First off, their entire approach of this Indigenous People Day to replace Columbus. Now, the Indigenous People Day part in the first place. The left treats, we'll say, Native Americans as if they're all exactly the same, like they're in one grouping. This is like somebody saying all Asians are just alike. The Chinese, the Koreans, the Japanese, oh, they're all just the same. There's no difference. There are tremendous differences. Just because they, quote, look like each other, according to white people on the left, doesn't mean that they're all lumped together. And frankly, that's how the left, who generally fancies themselves so sophisticated on these issues, and they accuse people on the right of, just being these Neanderthals that think all people of certain races look alike, yet they are the ones that lump every different category of Native Americans into the same category as if they're just one. And that is just not the case. The beliefs, the cultures, the way that they dealt with people, the way they fought wars, completely different. Perhaps the most humorous part of their approach to eliminating Christopher Columbus Day by replacing it with Indigenous People Day is that they do it, they say, in the name of not honoring somebody who is brutal. You want to talk about demonstrating that people on the left have no clue whatsoever what they're talking about. Some of the indigenous people tribes, Christopher Columbus, on his absolute worst day ever, would not even be able to conceive of some of the murderous and torturous ways in which some of these groups carried out battle against one another. I mean, I'm telling you, it is, the Saw movies? That's the sort of creative torture that some of these tribes utilized in order to, punish others or send messages. And sometimes they were white settlers. Sometimes they were other tribes. Do you know that their entire tribes wiped out and no longer exist? Not because of the white man, but because of other tribes. Complete genocide. Wiped them out. And do you know what it was generally over? This is the fun part. Land. This is what is so hysterical about the left replacing Columbus Day with Indigenous People Day because, of course, they portray Columbus as being this guy who came along and he just was some sort of genocidal maniac and he was stealing land from everything that you're describing is what so many tribes had done for centuries on this land to one another. The forms of torture. I believe it was the Comanche they were known for burying the enemy up to their head and then slicing their eyelids off and making them face the sun. Some of the things, again, I mentioned the movie Saw, they are perfectly in line with one another. Do you know they were slave owners, some of them? Some of the tribes owned black slaves. Oh, we didn't know that little bit of history, did we? Now, of course, it was a time in which that was very commonplace. This was not uncommon. What's hilarious is anytime you bring this up, some people try to dismiss it as, well, they were just trying to act like they were white. Oh, okay. I guess that makes it okay, as if that were true anyhow. But that's the way that some people on the left have tried to dismiss it, that they were just doing it to be popular. Oh, I guess that makes it better somehow morally. I don't know that there is any particular holiday/individual that the left attacks in a manner that is a greater demonstration of their hypocrisy, their lack of history, their lack of knowledge, their complete ignorance when it comes to something that they claim that they're such champions of, than when it comes to their battle against, Columbus Day. And, of course, Donald Trump declaring that he is going to just essentially reinvigorate the Columbus Day traditions and the recognitions of what it is that as an Italian he brought to the world in terms of exploration is just really going to fire these people up on the left to demonstrate again that they have no clue what they're talking about. It's almost as if they try and outdo themselves on this particular issue. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. I got to play this bit of audio. John Kerry, that guy, what does he do? I'm amazed at some of these people. They pop up at these different events. I guess he's a bit like Michelle Obama. He doesn't really do anything. He just shows up and people are, oh, look, there's John Kerry. He's at the Pope's funeral because that's where all the cool kids go. And he did an interview with MSNBC's Chris Jansing, and the issue of Ukraine came up, and what was clear is going to be an attack point on the Trump administration if it does become an issue. And the Trump administration has noted that part of any deal, in all likelihood, is going to end up with Russia having the Crimean Peninsula. And obviously, while Zelensky is signaling that will be unacceptable, this is something that has been accepted for over a decade. This isn't part of this recent invasion. In fact, I remember under the Obama years when this happened and there was essentially no real meaningful response. There was this sort of dismissal of the Crimean Peninsula by many within the Obama administration as, well, yeah, technically it is Ukraine's, but, in reality, it sort of had its own separate government. Anyhow, it had its autonomy, and it was really gifted by the Soviets. And so, they tried to make it seem as if it wasn't the same thing as invading the real Ukraine. But now, much different story, of course. And during this exchange with Secretary of State John Kerry, in which he was Secretary of State when this invasion did occur. And he was, why she did this on MSNBC, I have no idea, pointed that fact out. Listen to Kerry's response.
You were Secretary of State when Russia annexed Crimea. And I want to ask
when
you...
They stated
they stated, yeah.
We did not allow them to annex it.
Right.
And we stood up against it and called it against international law. Yeah, they said it. But that
can I ask you
under
about...
international law, that does not make it theirs.
This is such a perfect example of the fantasy world the left lives in. You had and they called it annexation at the time, not invasion. I'm glad that term was used because, again, in order to downplay it during the Obama years, well, they just annexed it. They didn't invade it. They didn't steal it. They didn't take it over. It was just an annexation. And so when she points out to John Kerry, well, actually, that happened when, you were Secretary of State. No, I didn't. She goes, well, yeah, it did. Well, I mean, they said that they did that, but that doesn't mean it's true. Well, what does make it true? I mean, because you said it didn't happen, that means it didn't. It happened. The left is so wrapped up in symbolism. You have a former Secretary of State referencing this point in history in which he was Secretary of State and the invasion of this huge piece of land, part of Ukraine, the Crimean Peninsula. But John Kerry's standing even today saying, well, it doesn't count because we didn't, we pretended as if it didn't happen. Well, isn't that a nice way to approach foreign policy? Latest traffic update.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see partly sunny skies throughout the day with a high near 83. Tonight, scattered showers and then mostly cloudy with a low around 63. For your Tuesday, we'll see a 90% chance of showers and thunderstorms with a high near 73. And looking ahead to Wednesday, we'll see showers with a high near 74. And the Pyramid Roofing Company, I spoke with Josh on Friday, and one question that he gets asked from time to time is if you should wait to file that insurance claim. And a couple of things that he brought up is that time, it does matter, and waiting can actually cost you. Now, most insurance companies, they do have a deadline for when you can file a claim, and you don't want to miss that deadline. He also stressed that minor damage can actually get worse, and that can turn into a major repair. So if you have damage or you think you have damage, don't wait. Schedule that free roof inspection with the Pyramid Roofing Company. They document everything with photos and videos, and if you do choose to file, you'll have a pretty strong claim ready to go, and the Pyramid team, they work through that insurance process with you without making you sign anything. Now, you can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at KSGF.com.
The issue of illegal immigration is one in which the media has gone from gaslighting the American people and claiming that there wasn't an open border. This is, of course, because they're part of the Democrat Party, and that was part of the Democratic Party messaging. And largely because of a couple of governors, Texas and Florida, sending some of these people who are in the country illegally to the Democrats' backyard, it was unavoidable for it to get coverage, because then you had some Democrats that were having to deal with this mess. And people began to realize, and not just, racist white people, but you had, particularly in people in cities, or people within cities, people of color, that became very vocal about this, and they could no longer convince themselves that they were successfully convincing us that there was no problem whatsoever. And so then, of course, they admitted there was a problem, but they tried to say it was Trump's fault because the only way for the border to get fixed is if Republicans passed legislation for Biden to sign. But Trump stopped them from doing that. And people didn't buy into that as well. Then they tried to claim Kamala Harris was never the border czar and that she actually supported a strong border. And so we know it's just been one lie after another. Then it was the Maryland man lie. And this is that this man who on two occasions was, such, according to his wife, such a serial abuser, she had to file restraining orders against him. But they couldn't wait to get him back in that house, which I'm still waiting for these women's rights organizations to stand up, these organizations that are so adamant about informing people about abuse in the home, that you have Democrats that are openly doing everything they can to get that man back in that home. That seems sick to me. But now the latest is to try to claim that Donald Trump is deporting children who are legal citizens. This is the latest lie. This lie was brought up on one of the networks with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. It was either ABC or CBS.
On the headline, that's a misleading headline. Okay, 3 U.S. citizens, ages 4, 7, and 2, were not deported. Their mothers, who are legally in this country, were deported. The children went with their mothers. If those children are U.S. citizens, they can come back into the United States if there's their father or someone here who wants to assume them. But ultimately, who was deported was their mothers who were here illegally. The children just went with their mothers. But it wasn't like, you guys make it sound like ICE agents kicked down the door and grabbed the 2-year-old and threw him on an airplane. That's misleading. Yeah. That's just not true.
Just to be clear, because I do want to get to the overhaul at the State Department, is it the U.S. policy to deport children, even U.S. citizens, with their families, and I hear what you're saying, without due process? Just to be very clear there.
Well, No. Again, if someone's in this country unlawfully, illegally, that person gets deported. If that person is with a 2-year-old child or has a 2-year-old child and says, I want to take my child with me, well, then what? You have two choices. You can say, yes, of course you can take your child, whether they're a citizen or not, because it's your child. Or you can say, yes, you can go, but your child must stay behind. And then your headlines would read, U.S. holding hostage 2-year-old, 4-year-old, 7-year-old while mother deported.
Now, as what has become standard, when someone in the media asks a question, in Marco Rubio in this particular example, and then he points out that what they're saying is untrue, it's just glossed over. Okay, well, let's move on to the next point. Let's move on to the next. Well, let's talk about this now. We've got now the media arguing against keeping families together, or at least mothers with their children. This is the level of insanity. If you're not familiar, we're going to play some audio coming up with Border Czar Tom Homan on this very same issue. That you have instances in which a woman is in the country illegally, and she is being deported as her due process required. And then her family is given a choice. As the mother, do you want to take the children with you, or do you want the children to stay here? In one example, she has a husband that I don't know if he's legal in the country or if he is here also illegally, but has not gotten to that point of deportation. But the children could have stayed with the father, but the mother said, no, I want to take the children with me. And so the response was, okay, you're the mother. The children are still U.S. citizens. It's their choice. It's the choice of the family. They have family here. They can stay here. So here you have a situation in which the administration is deferring to what the illegal alien who is the mother wants, and they're being criticized for that. You see how it does not matter what they do. Makes no difference whatsoever. Separate families, get condemned for it. Allow families to stay together, get condemned for it. It is rich that the same leftist ideology that is trying to falsely paint this administration as deporting children were all in for deporting Elian Gonzalez at gunpoint. Some of you may not recall that. That was a huge deal during the Clinton years, because that was a period of time where Democrats pretended as if they were for enforcing our border laws. And in Florida, there is, Obama repealed this. I forget if it went back, if the Trump administration re-implemented it. But since the Kennedy administration, both Republicans and Democrats had abided by the dry foot, wet foot, I believe is what it was called, policy for Cubans, that if Cubans made it on raft and walked up onto the beach here into the United States, they had a special protected status. And Obama, on his way out, said that no longer exists. Now, of course, we know why, and that's because of all the minority groups, particularly those who come here as immigrants through a non-traditional way. Cubans were the exception in terms of which political party they supported. They overwhelmingly supported Republicans. So Democrats finally found one group of immigrants that they didn't support, and they wanted to stop coming here. And that was Obama on his way out. Well, there was a mother who fled with her child, Elian Gonzalez. He was about 5 or 6 years old. And she died on the way here. He survived, and her family was here. His father was still back in Cuba. And being back in Cuba, of course, in the communist regime, whether he, was full in with the dictatorship or he had no choice, but he called for Elian to be sent back, torn from his family in Florida, to be sent back to communist Cuba, and the Democrats rallied to have that happen. And it got to the point that the Clinton administration sent in essentially a SWAT team with weapons of war to literally drag from the arms of, I believe it was his uncle, a little boy panicked in fear. There's an iconic photo. You don't see it quite a bit because of where Democrats stand today when it comes to this particular issue. But they literally at gunpoint tore this little boy and sent him back to a communist regime. So when you listen to these same people today take a completely upside down position because, of course, Donald Trump, it's another demonstration of how full of crap these people are and how they cannot be trusted and they're completely dishonest. And so they're running around falsely claiming that children who are legal citizens in this country are being deported, and they are not being deported. Well, but the mother is she's taking them, but she doesn't have to. That's her choice. Leave them here with family or friends. Coming up, Tom Homan on this exact same issue, also attempting to correct the disinformation. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Borders are Tom Homan on the disinformation campaign being led by the Democrats and the media that children who are legal citizens are being deported by the Trump administration.
On Friday, a federal judge who was appointed by President Trump said a 2-year-old American citizen child had been sent to Honduras with the mother who was deported. But the judge said, quote, there was no meaningful process. So again, this is another similar situation and dynamic. Shouldn't there be special care when these deportation cases involve small American-born children?
Well, first of all, I disagree with the judge. There was due process. That female had due process at great taxpayer expense and was ordered by an immigration judge after those hearings. So she had due process. Again, this is parenting 101. You can decide to take that child with you, or you can decide to leave the child here with a relative or another spouse. Having a U.S. citizen child doesn't make you immune from our laws of the country. American families get separated every day by law enforcement. Thousands of times a day when a parent gets put in jail, the child can't go with them. These, if you're an illegal alien, come to this country, and you decide to have a U.S. citizen child, that's on you. You put yourself in that position.
Well, when it came to this particular case, you just pointed out that they could have made arrangements. The father tried, actually, to make arrangements, as we understand it through our reporting. But he and the mother, who were separated since she was in detention after showing up for her appointment, was only allowed a very brief phone call. The father tried to petition to get the child handed over to an American citizen relative. So the mother had to make this decision and took the child with her. It just seems like there could be some more time frame here around due process allowed. That's what the judge is saying there should have been more of a process here.
There was due process. The 2-year-old baby was left with the mother because the mother signed a document requesting her 2-year-old baby go with her. That's the parent's decision. I don't think the judge knows specifics of this case. 2-year-old went with the mom. The mom signed a paper saying, "I want my 2-year-old to go with me." That's a parent's decision. It's not a government decision. It's a parent's decision.
The father wrote a note. Anyhow, we have to leave it there. Director, thank you for your time today. We'll be right back.
Way to wrap up an interview there. It's clear. I don't know what the deal was there, if she was realizing that whatever this note she was about to read was going to contradict her own point. Now, of course, there is a lot about that particular situation, not to get too into the weeds, that she is presenting that doesn't really give any additional information. So she's claiming that, well, the father was trying to fill out paperwork to have the child turned over to another relative. Why didn't he just take the child? It's his child. This isn't that difficult. So clearly, did she have the child with her at that time? It doesn't sound like it. Where was the child at that time? She signed paperwork deciding, I want to take my child with me. And the fact is, it's not irreversible. The child, being a U.S. citizen, even after this decision that she takes her child, as she is deported with her back to Honduras, then she can simply send the baby back. Or have her husband or whomever else is who legally has legal status here in this country, which I don't know, maybe that's the problem with the husband. He also here is illegally. But somebody whom they want to care for that child as a citizen of the United States can fly down to Honduras and get that child. This bending over backwards and twisting ourselves into pretzels in order to make sure that people who came into this country illegally never, ever, ever get held accountable in any capacity whatsoever, I think is exhausting to most Americans. While you and I, as average citizens, particularly if you're a small business owner or you deal with some sort of issue with the IRS, it's as if it is a never-ending nightmare, and people that are Americans find themselves doing everything they can and spending insane amounts of money at times, hiring attorneys in order to do whatever is possible to comply with the government. And then we see these people in the media and the Democrat Party acting as if people who come to this country illegally, that then the government should bend over backwards to make sure that those people never have to comply with our laws. And this buzzword of the due process, the left is using due process like they use the word homophobic or racist. It is a buzzword that they throw around whether it applies or not. Some of these individuals, the so-called Maryland man, I believe that he had 17 different court appearances over I don't know how many years, yet they just say, well, he didn't get due process. And that has become well, you're just a racist. It doesn't matter whether there's any truth to it. It doesn't matter whether there's any evidence of racism. You can prove the opposite, that there was absolutely no racism, and they still call you a racist. You can have these individuals, as he points out, this was due process. The entire reason she's being deported is because of due process. She went through the process she was due as somebody in this country illegally, and that due process had this particular outcome. But the left, due process or lack of due process translates to it didn't turn out the way I wanted. So it doesn't matter. You can have 10 years and 1,000 different days in court. If it doesn't turn out the way that they want to support their narrative or whatever their goals are, they claim that that person didn't receive due process. That has become their new buzzword, like racist, homophobe, anti-science, just these acknowledgments that they have no facts for their argument. So they name call. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Sometimes you want people to tell you what you want to hear. Sometimes you want somebody that's going to tell you a reality. And oftentimes, when it comes to putting your home on the market, those two different types of people can be the difference between whether or not you are able to sell your home for the most amount possible as quickly as possible versus it stays on the market for 6 months to a year. Oftentimes, and people are people, some people are non-confrontational. They don't like to hurt people's feelings. Some people are people pleasers. And if you have a home that you want to put on the market and you're like, well, I think it's worth this much. And they're like, oh, not really. And they recognize that your decor is not going to help people first impression when they come in. Maybe your house smells like pets, and that automatically brings it down a notch, even though those are things that can be remedied. We all know these have impressions on people. And if you want someone to tell you, oh, yeah, how much do you think? Oh, yep, that sounds fantastic, because they don't want to hurt your feelings, it may sit on the market, and you may not know why. And you may find yourself frustrated. But if you want somebody who's going to come in and very, kindly let you know, okay, look, here's the deal. You're probably asking just a little too much. And there's a few things that's not going to take a lot to do, but you got to understand, you got nose blindness. We're all used to the smells in our homes to where we don't smell them any longer. But somebody who's not been here before, the first thing they smell are dogs. And that can be a bit of a put-off for people, particularly if they don't have dogs themselves. That's Emily Johnson. She's going to tell you what you need to know. And hey, your house may be great, and you may not need to make any alterations whatsoever. She'll tell you that as well. So if you want a people pleaser that may end up with you having your house on the market for 6 to 8 months, then okay, lots of choices. But if you want someone who is looking out for you and making sure that you are as ready as possible to get that home on the market, you want Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Now, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of discussion on the programs today regarding this judge in Wisconsin that helped an illegal immigrant who was facing trial for beating a woman and another guy, and the fact that some liberal judge in Wisconsin helped that individual escape ICE detention. And so this person was arrested. As usual, as you can imagine, the left is coming to the defense of the judge that helped an accused woman beater evade justice. What is it with you folks on the left and this insistency on protecting people who beat women? I mean, it's like every time. George Floyd. Like, well, yeah, but he was killed while in police custody. There are a lot of people, not tons, but there are a lot of instances in which somebody, while fighting police and hopped up on drugs, lost their lives. Like, you insist on finding the one that also held a woman at gunpoint while she was pregnant, pointing the gun at her stomach. One of these guys that was, he fought police. He had a knife, and he fought police, and officer defended his life by shooting the individual. It was one that Kamala Harris visited in the hospital. Yeah, he didn't die. Kamala Harris visited the guy in the hospital. The reason that police were called to the scene, because his ex-wife called 911. She had a restraining order against him because he had beat and raped her in the past. Kamala Harris decided to go visit him at his bedside. The Maryland man, his wife, had 2 restraining orders against him for abuse. And anyone who knows anything about this sort of abuse knows that probably wasn't just those 2 times. And that's the ones that Democrats, we got to go down and spring him out to put him back in that house. And now this guy that the judge in Wisconsin helped evade, sent him out through a side room so that he wouldn't be detained by ICE. He was there, as were his victims, because among other things, he beat this woman. And a judge is like, no, I'm going to help you get out of here? I'm sure that made the alleged victim feel very safe. It is just such a weird draw that these spouse or women abusers have for Democrats. Glenn Beck's coming up next. I'm Nick Reed.